Millions of people go to work every day, but what happens when their jobs turn deadly? In this video, we'll see the scary stories of people who went to work and never came home. From factories in China to construction sites in the USA, these tales will send chills down your spine. Get ready for 1 hour of the most disturbing workplace deaths, where normal workdays turn into nightmares. The pre-dawn hours of October 11, 2012, at Bumblebee Foods' Santa Fe Springs plant were cold and quiet. The faint hum of machinery was the only sound breaking the early morning stillness. Jose Molina, a 62-year-old veteran of the plant, arrived as he did every day well before the sun began to rise. His job, though often monotonous, was one he took pride in. He was a man of routine, known for his reliability and dedication. The plant was a labyrinth of machinery, pipes, and production lines where the slightest error could cascade into disaster. Jose knew this well, having spent years navigating its complexities. This morning he had maintenance work on one of the industrial ovens, a massive pressure cooker used to process thousands of pounds of canned tuna. As Jose climbed into the oven to begin his work, he was surrounded by silence and darkness, the heavy door closing behind him. He moved methodically, checking for any signs of wear or malfunction, a routine he had performed countless times before. Little did he know this morning would be unlike any other. Elsewhere in the plant, a co-worker went about his tasks, unaware of Jose's presence inside the oven. In a tragic twist of fate, this co-worker assumed Jose had taken a brief break, perhaps to the bathroom. Believing the stove to be empty, he proceeded to load it with 12,000 pounds of canned tuna, sealing the heavy door shut and setting the machine to its high-temperature cycle. The deadly process began with a quiet but relentless escalation, the temperature inside the oven rising steadily to 270 degrees Fahrenheit. Jose, still inside, was unaware of the impending danger. The walls around him began to heat, the air thickening with an oppressive warmth. Realization dawned slowly, turning into horror as he understood the grave mistake that had been made. The oven, now a sealed chamber of death, gave him no escape. His cries for help were swallowed by the relentless hum of the plant's machinery, unheard by his colleagues. 2 hours passed before a supervisor noticed that Jose was missing. The intercom cracked, calling for him throughout the facility and parking lot. Panic set in among the employees as they searched every corner, their hearts sinking with each passing moment. The industrial oven, a silent sentinel amid the chaos, continued its deadly cycle, unnoticed in the frantic search. The grim discovery was made when the oven was finally shut off and opened. Jose's body lay inside, a stark testament to the unimaginable pain he had endured. The reality of his death, so horrific and unexpected, sent shockwaves through the plant and the wider community. The aftermath was a whirlwind of grief, anger, and legal proceedings. Bumblebee Foods Plant Operations Director Angel Rodriguez and former safety manager Saul Flores were charged with multiple violations of Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA rules. These charges highlighted the company's failure to implement essential safety measures, including proper safety plans, rules for workers entering confined spaces, and procedures to ensure machinery was turned off when someone was inside. The prosecution was straightforward. Rodriguez and Flores could face up to 3 years in prison and hefty fines if convicted. Bumblebee Foods, already cited by the state's Occupational Safety Agency for failing to assess the dangers posed by its large ovens, faced a potential fine of $1.5 million. The legal battle was fierce, underscoring the dire need for accountability and improved safety standards in industrial workplaces. 3 years after the incident, a historic settlement was reached. Bumblebee Foods agreed to pay $6 million, the largest workplace violation fatality settlement in California history. The settlement was not just about money. It marked a significant shift in the company's approach to worker safety. Bumblebee Foods committed to upgrading their ovens to prevent worker entrapment, implementing comprehensive safety training programs, and admitting to a misdemeanor charge for willfully failing to provide an effective safety program. Rodriguez and Flores also faced consequences. Both pleaded guilty to misdemeanor charges, receiving fines and community service. These punishments, while significant, paled in comparison to the grief and loss suffered by Jose Molina's family. The $1.5 million they received as part of the settlement was a small consolation for the irreplaceable void left in their lives. It was January 15, 2024, in Dysart, Queensland. A 27-year-old coal miner, Luke O'Brien, had just started his shift at BHP Mitsubishi Alliance's Saraji South coal mine. Luke was known for his love of mining and speedway racing. He often shared his adventures on social media and enjoyed weekends with friends at Mojo's. That day, however, his routine task turned into a tragedy. Around midday, Luke and a co-worker towed a stuck B double fuel truck. Luke stood between the tray of a light utility vehicle or ute and the fuel truck's bull bar. The ute rolled backward in a sudden and tragic turn, crushing Luke against the truck. The incident happened around noon. Emergency services were called immediately. Paramedics arrived around 1:30 p.m. and rushed Luke to Dysart Hospital. Despite all efforts to save him, Luke's injuries were too severe, and he died later that evening. News of Luke's death quickly resonated throughout the mining community. In response, Resources Safety and Health Queensland initiated a comprehensive investigation. Rob Jukic, the Chief Operating Officer of RSHQ, expressed deep sympathy and confirmed that an investigation was launched immediately after they were notified. He mentioned that several investigators and inspectors from the Serious Incident Investigation Unit and Coal Inspectorate are collaborating closely with BMA to determine the cause of the incident and develop strategies to prevent future accidents. The Queensland Police also joined the investigation, preparing a report for the coroner. Operations at Saraji Mine were halted immediately to allow the investigation to proceed and to give workers time to reflect on their colleague's death. Luke O'Brien's sudden death shocked the local and broader mining communities. The Queensland Resources Council and the Mining and Energy Union issued statements offering condolences and committing to uncovering the causes of the tragedy. Judy Bertram, acting CEO of the Queensland Resources Council, expressed deep sympathy for the family enduring an unimaginable loss and the friends, colleagues, and first responders involved. She affirmed the Council's support for all efforts to prevent similar tragedies in the future. The Mining and Energy Union expressed their profound grief following a tragic incident, stating their devastation over a coal miner not returning home after their shift. Union safety inspectors were deployed to ensure a thorough investigation and to recommend measures to prevent future incidents. Luke was more than just a miner to those who knew him. His family, friends, and co-workers expressed their grief and shared memories across social media. His mother, Yvette O'Brien, spoke of a shattered heart over the loss of her son. At the same time, his father, Terence O'Brien, posted about the pain of losing his youngest son after the incident at Saraji Mine, thanking everyone for their support during this difficult time. High school friends and colleagues remembered Luke as a hard-working and passionate individual. Glenn Payne, a friend from Luke's school days, shared with 7 News that Luke loved Speedway, a passion he shared with his father, a longtime racer. Scotty Wedemeyer, a field service diesel fitter, mourned the loss of their meetups at Mojo's and encountered at the mine and camp. Mick Veal, owner of Veal Industries, recalled meeting Luke, describing him as one of the best, and remembered moments of camaraderie during challenging jobs. McCosker Gladstone Speedway paid tribute to Luke's enthusiasm for racing, noting that he competed in his modified sedan on their track and was known as a respectful and well-liked individual. They expressed that his passing represents a significant loss for the racing community, emphasizing that he will be deeply missed. Luke O'Brien's tragic death underscored the inherent dangers of mining and prompted a renewed emphasis on safety within the industry. BMA's asset president, Adam Lancy, extended deep sympathies and emphasized the importance of workplace safety, acknowledging the profound impact of the loss on Luke's family, friends, and colleagues during this difficult time. Queensland Resources Minister Scott Stewart addressed the tragedy's wider implications, highlighting the expectations for worker safety. He described the incident as a heartbreaking reminder of the inherent risks associated with mining, emphasizing the importance of ongoing efforts to ensure workers come home safe and healthy. The industry is committed to implementing significant measures to prevent such tragedies in the future. Union District President Mitch Hughes pledged a comprehensive investigation, emphasizing the union's determination to scrutinize every detail to understand the incident's circumstances and devise strategies to prevent future fatalities and injuries. It was a cold evening on December 13, 2022, in Blackjack, a quiet neighborhood in St. Louis, Missouri. Herschel Perkins, a 60-year-old pizza delivery driver, had just left the Papa John's on New Halls Ferry in Florissant to deliver a pizza. This wasn't just any delivery for Herschel. It was a cash order to an apartment on Whisper Lake Drive. Herschel knew the risks of cash deliveries. He always talked about it with his employees. He had a strict protocol: call the customer, meet them outside, and never wander around the complex. But on this night, something went terribly wrong. Around 9:30 p.m., Herschel arrived at the apartment complex. He parked his car and, following his routine, called the customer. But instead of meeting someone outside, Herschel was met with a barrage of gunfire. He was shot multiple times before he could complete the delivery. Despite his critical injuries, Herschel managed to call 911. In his last moments, he told the dispatcher he had been shot and didn't think he would survive. When officers arrived, they found Herschel lying in the parking lot, his lifeless body filled with gunshot wounds. Herschel Perkins was pronounced dead at the scene. The news of Herschel's death spread quickly. For those who knew him, the loss was unexpected. Rashonda Johnson, Herschel's daughter-in-law, remembered him as a loving person who looked out for everyone. He had hired her at Papa John's years ago and introduced her to her husband, Cortez Farmer. Cortez, who considered Herschel his stepfather, described him as a dedicated family man and a hard worker. Herschel had started as a delivery driver and worked his way up to general manager. He loved his job and always went the extra mile to help his employees and customers. But who could have done this to Herschel, and why? The answers would come soon enough. The investigation led police to Wye Hallowanger, a 20-year-old man from Florissant. Hallowanger was arrested and charged with first-degree murder and armed criminal action. He confessed to ordering the pizza to a vacant apartment and admitted to changing the phone number he used to place the order. Hallowanger's plan was cold and calculated. He waited for Herschel to arrive, knowing full well what he intended to do. The arrest of Hallowanger brought some relief to Herschel's family, but the ordeal was far from over. On February 7, 2023, police announced that a second suspect, Marcus Thomas, had been charged in connection with Herschel's murder. Thomas, 23, faced the same charges as Hallowanger: first-degree murder and armed criminal action. The details of Thomas's involvement were not as clear, but his presence at the scene suggested a planned and coordinated attack. As the months passed, the legal proceedings against Hallowanger and Thomas unfolded. In May 2024, a jury convicted Hallowanger of first-degree murder and armed criminal action. The verdict was a formality, as a first-degree murder conviction carries a mandatory life sentence without parole. Marcus Thomas, on the other hand, pleaded guilty to a reduced charge of second-degree murder. Throughout the trial, Herschel's family and friends sought justice for the man they loved. They remembered him as a great dad, a loving grandfather, and a dedicated employee. Herschel's tragic death left a pain and a void that could never be filled, but the convictions of Hallowanger and Thomas provided a measure of closure. Herschel Perkins' story shows the potential dangers that can be faced by delivery drivers. Despite the precautions he took, Herschel fell victim to a senseless act of violence. His family will always remember him as a kind and caring man who did everything he could to support them. But the questions remain. Why did Hallowanger and Thomas target Herschel? Was it a robbery gone wrong? Or was there a more personal motive? It was July 13, 2023, near Revelstoke, British Columbia. The summer had been unforgiving, with wildfires ravaging the province. On this day, 19-year-old Devon Gale was doing what she had dedicated herself to for the past 3 seasons, battling fires with the BC Wildfire Service. Devon, known for her kindness and strong sense of duty, had been clearing brush in a remote area where a small fire had broken out. Devon's family, friends, and colleagues remember her as someone who embodied compassion and selflessness. She was in her 3rd year at the University of British Columbia, Okanagan, studying to become a nurse. This dual dedication to firefighting and nursing showcased her commitment to serving others. The wildfire season in British Columbia has been exceptionally brutal this year. The province is grappling with a severe crisis, as over 350 wildfires rage uncontrollably, consuming more than 1.2 million hectares of forest. The combination of scant rainfall and persistently hot, dry conditions has exacerbated the severity and frequency of these fires. An urgent call is for 1,000 international firefighters to support the overwhelmed local teams. On that fateful Thursday afternoon, Devon and her team were tasked with clearing brush in a remote, heavily wooded area. This kind of work, though essential, is extremely dangerous. Fires can reignite quickly, and the dense forest poses constant hazards. Around 3:30 p.m., the Revelstoke RCMP received a distressing call. Devon had lost contact with her team. When her colleagues located her, they found her trapped under a fallen tree. Despite their immediate attempts to administer first aid and airlift her to Queen Victoria Hospital, Devon succumbed to her injuries. News of Devon's passing spread rapidly, drawing condolences from across Canada. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau recognized the bravery and sacrifice of Devon and her fellow firefighters in his expressions of grief. British Columbia Premier David Eby also mourned the loss, describing it as significant for everyone involved with the BC Wildfire Service during a particularly challenging time. Devon's brother, Nolan Gale, shared his heartache and admiration for his sister in a heartfelt Instagram post. He described her as thoughtful, hardworking, and selfless, defining her as a sister and firefighter. Devon's death was proof of the dangers faced by wildfire fighters. While fatalities among these brave individuals are relatively rare, the risks they confront daily are immense. The BC Wildfire Service, WorkSafe BC, and the BC Coroner's Service launched investigations to understand Devon's death circumstances, aiming to prevent such incidents. In the days following her death, a memorial was held in Revelstoke to honor Devon. Hundreds of people lined the streets, including members of the BC Wildfire Service, various fire departments, and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, all paying their respects. Bagpipers played solemn tunes as a procession made its way through the town. Devon's siblings, Nolan and Caelan, who also serve as firefighters, gave emotional tributes during the ceremony. They spoke of Devon's motivation, compassion, and unwavering dedication to helping others. During his tribute, Nolan praised Devon as one of the best people he knew, noting that her humility would normally prevent such accolades. Meanwhile, Caelan, struggling to hold back tears, urged everyone to remember Devon's legacy in the worsening wildfire conditions. She encouraged laughter in her memory, emphasizing that Devon would never be forgotten. Stephen Hood, a colleague from the BC Wildfire Service, described Devon as immensely beautiful and full of life, highlighting her enthusiasm for her work and her adventurous spirit. Another colleague, Casey Robinson, remembered Devon's welcoming nature towards new crew members, ensuring they felt prepared and supported in their challenging roles. Born November 24, 2003, she grew up in Langley, British Columbia, and was known for participating in competitive swimming and skiing. Her passion, however, was trampoline gymnastics, where she trained and competed with the Revelstoke Acrobats Trampoline Club. This love for physical challenges eventually led her to firefighting, where she channeled her energy into protecting her community. In addition to her athletic pursuits, Devon was a diligent student at UBC Okanagan, preparing for a career in nursing. Leslie Cormack, the principal and deputy vice-chancellor of UBCO, conveyed the campus's devastation over losing such a promising and dedicated student. She expressed deep condolences on behalf of the university to Devon's family and friends, and to everyone in the community who knew and loved her. Devon's dual commitment to firefighting and nursing reflected her desire to make a tangible difference in people's lives. Her determination and selflessness left a lasting impact on those who knew her. The tributes from her family, friends, and colleagues painted a picture of a young woman whose life, though tragically cut short, was filled with purpose and courage. It was a bright Monday morning in Bonita, California, near San Diego. Bardomiano Bautista Perez, a 39-year-old father of 4 from Escondido, was working his second tree trimming job of the day. He was a dedicated and experienced tree trimmer with over 13 years of experience, and he loved his work. Bardomiano was known for his safety consciousness and passion for his job. Even competing in tree trimming competitions, he had dreams of starting his own tree trimming business one day. Bardomiano had been hired by a friend to work in a 4-person team, trimming palm trees in the front yard of a home on Bonita Verde Drive. The team had been working diligently, carefully trimming the tall palm trees. It was a job that required precision and caution, as the dead palm fronds could be heavy and unpredictable. At around 11:30 a.m., Bardomiano was about 50 feet up an 80-foot-tall palm tree. He was in the midst of his work when disaster struck. The cut palm fronds, weighing hundreds of pounds, suddenly collapsed and pinned him against the tree. His co-workers on the ground watched in horror as he became trapped and suspended among the heavy foliage. The other workers immediately called 911, trying to free their friend while waiting for help to arrive. Within minutes, firefighters from Chula Vista arrived on the scene. They quickly assessed the situation and knew they had to act fast. The team, including a specialized search and rescue unit, began the difficult task of freeing Bardomiano from the dense and heavy fronds. Chula Vista Battalion Chief Tim Merer described the incident as something that is relatively unique to certain types of palm trees, where the falling fronds can trap workers. The firefighters worked tirelessly for about 35 minutes, carefully cutting away the palm fronds to reach Bardomiano. Despite their best efforts, by the time they lowered him to the ground, it was too late. Bardomiano was pronounced dead at the scene. The tragic accident left Bardomiano's family and friends in shock. His sister-in-law, Rosario Martinez, expressed the family's disbelief and grief. "We can't believe it," she told the media. "You can't describe it in words." She described Bardomiano as a hard-working, modest, humble man who was a great family man. "He was so safety-conscious. That's why we don't understand what happened," she added. The California Division of Occupational Safety and Health, or Cal-OSHA, launched an investigation into the accident. They aimed to determine the exact cause of the incident and ensure that all safety protocols were followed. The investigation would also help provide answers to Bardomiano's family, who needed to understand what happened to him. A GoFundMe page was set up by Bardomiano's loved ones to support his wife and children during this difficult time. The community rallied around the family, offering their condolences and support. Bardomiano's 14-year-old daughter expressed her determination to fulfill her father's dream of starting a family tree trimming business. Palm tree trimming is a dangerous job, and incidents like this highlight the unique risks associated with it. The sudden collapse of heavy fronds can be deadly, even for experienced workers like Bardomiano. Firefighters and other first responders often face challenges when dealing with such accidents, as the dense foliage and height of the trees can make rescue operations difficult. The San Diego County Medical Examiner's Office confirmed that Bardomiano had been working at a private residence when the accident occurred. He was hoisted on a palm tree that was about 100 feet tall, trimming the dead fronds when they collapsed on him. Despite the efforts of his co-workers and first responders, Bardomiano did not survive. Rosario Martinez described Bardomiano as a devoted husband and father, with children ranging from 2 to 14 years old. His death was a devastating loss for the family. "Our whole family is heartbroken. It was so unexpected," she said. She emphasized Bardomiano's love for his work and his dedication to his family's well-being. Firefighters at the scene described the accident as a tragic one. The job of trimming palm trees, especially tall ones, requires not only skill and experience, but also a keen awareness of the dangers involved. The heavy fronds can fall without warning, creating a hazardous situation for workers. The accident has prompted discussions about safety measures and regulations for tree trimming work, particularly for palm trees. Ensuring that workers are adequately trained and equipped to handle such risks is crucial. Employers must also prioritize safety and provide the necessary support and resources to their workers. As the investigation by Cal-OSHA continues, Bardomiano's family hopes to find some closure and understanding of what led to his tragic death. They are also committed to raising awareness about the dangers of tree trimming and advocating for better safety measures to prevent similar accidents in the future. It was June 17, 2024, in Latina, a rural area in the south of Rome, Italy. Satnam Singh, a 31-year-old Indian national, was working on a farm without legal papers. He had been living in Italy for several years, working hard to support his family back in Punjab, India. He and his wife both worked at the same farm, often facing harsh conditions and exploitation. On that Monday, Satnam was cutting hay in a melon greenhouse when tragedy struck. While working, his arm got caught in a hay-cutting machine. The machine severed his arm, causing severe injuries to his legs as well. His wife, witnessing the horrifying accident, pleaded with the farm owner, Renzo Lovato, to rush her husband to the hospital. Instead of providing immediate medical help, Renzo's son, Antonello, made a shocking decision. He placed Satnam and his severed arm into a minivan and drove them back to their home. Antonello dumped Satnam on the roadside like a bag of rubbish, as described by the FLAI Guild trade union, and left him to bleed out. Satnam's wife frantically sought help from their neighbors, urging them to call an ambulance. The neighbors responded quickly, and an air ambulance was dispatched. Satnam was flown to a hospital in Rome, but despite the efforts of the medical team, he succumbed to his injuries around midday on Wednesday, June 19, 2024. The news of Satnam's tragic death spread quickly. The Indian embassy in Italy expressed their condolences and assured that they were in contact with local authorities. They were also making efforts to contact Satnam's family and provide consular assistance. The embassy's statement read, "The embassy is aware of the very unfortunate demise of an Indian national in Latina Italy. We are in contact with local authorities. Efforts are underway to contact the family and provide consular assistance." Italian Labor Minister Marina Calderoni called the incident a true act of barbarity and stated that the authorities were investigating the matter. She expressed hope that those responsible would be punished. The center-left Democratic Party condemned Satnam's treatment, calling it a defeat for civilization. They highlighted the exploitation of workers in the region and emphasized the need to fight against gangmastering and for dignified and humane living and working conditions. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni also expressed shock at the tragedy during a cabinet meeting. She said, "These are inhumane acts that do not belong to the Italian people, and I hope that this barbarity will be punished harshly." Meloni's sentiments were echoed by many in her government who called for swift justice. The farm owner, Renzo Lovato, expressed regret over the accident and claimed that he had warned Satnam not to approach the machinery. Antonello, who left Satnam outside his home, was arrested on Tuesday, July 2, 2024, for charges of second-degree murder. Trade unions in Italy condemned the incident, linking it to the broader issue of caporalato, the illegal gangmaster system of hiring migrant workers. Maria Grazia Gabrielli from Italy's largest trade union, CGIL, described the incident as an event of unprecedented brutality and highlighted the slave-like conditions endured by many farm laborers. She said, "Exploitation in the fields very often results in starvation wages, unsafe and inhumane working rhythms and conditions, psychological and physical violence. The conditions under which Satnam and other migrant workers labored were often dire." According to 2021 data from the National Statistics Office, ISTAT, about 11% of Italian workers were employed illegally, with the percentage rising to more than 23% in agriculture. The Agropontino region where Satnam worked is notorious for the exploitation of workers. As the investigation into Satnam's death continues, it raises serious questions about the treatment of migrant workers in Italy. How could such a horrific act happen? Why did the farm owner choose to abandon Satnam instead of rushing him to a hospital? These questions show the broader issue of worker exploitation and the need for stricter regulations to protect the rights and lives of laborers. On June 7, 2024, tragedy struck Disneyland in Anaheim, California. Bonnie Mavis Lear, a dedicated employee of 24 years, succumbed to injuries after a horrific accident involving a golf cart. The incident took place in a backstage area of the theme park, far from the sight of visitors enjoying their day. It was a typical busy morning at Disneyland. Bonnie, 60, who worked in membership services at the exclusive Club 33, was on her way to another part of the park. Club 33, a private dining club in New Orleans Square, is known for its elite accommodation and rich history, opening in 1967. Bonnie had been a crucial part of the team, ensuring the club's services run smoothly. On this day, she was a passenger in a golf cart traveling through a backstage area near Critter Country. The cart, driven by another employee, was moving at about 20 miles per hour. Bonnie was seated in a rear-facing seat along with 3 other passengers. As the cart navigated the road, it unexpectedly hit a bump or a dip. In an instant, Bonnie reached for the handrail to steady herself. But the rail, either loose or unable to support the sudden force, gave way. Without anything to hold on to, Bonnie was thrown from the moving cart. She landed headfirst on the ground. Her skull was fractured on impact, causing severe brain swelling. First responders were called to the scene at around 11:30 a.m. Anaheim police and paramedics quickly arrived and found Bonnie unconscious and gravely injured. They stabilized her and rushed her to a local hospital. Despite their efforts, Bonnie's condition remained critical. Doctors performed emergency surgery, but the damage was too severe. By Thursday morning, she was declared brain dead. Bonnie passed away the next day, June 9, 2024. Bonnie's death deeply shocked and saddened her colleagues in the Disneyland community. Disneyland Resort President Ken Potrock issued a heartfelt statement expressing condolences and highlighting the profound heartbreak caused by the loss of Bonnie. He emphasized the resort's commitment to supporting her family and their cast members during this tragic time and ensuring that they have access to the necessary resources. Friends and co-workers like Ray Delgado, a cast member from Disney California Adventure, were devastated. Ray took to social media, sharing details about the accident and calling for justice. She wrote about the unsafe conditions that led to Bonnie's death, highlighting the need for better safety measures. Ray's post emphasized that the handrail failure was a critical factor and that such incidents should not be brushed aside. The accident raised serious questions about Disneyland's safety practices. Was the golf cart properly maintained? Why did the handrail fail? These questions are essential for understanding what went wrong and preventing future accidents. The golf cart, a common mode of transportation in the park's backstage areas, was expected to be safe. However, the bump in the road combined with the faulty handrail created a deadly scenario. Bonnie's attempt to steady herself was a natural reaction, but the inadequate support led to her tragic fall. The Anaheim Police Department confirmed that no drugs or alcohol were involved, and the driver of the cart was not injured. The investigation focused on the mechanical and operational aspects of the cart, aiming to pinpoint any failures in maintenance or design. Bonnie's life was intertwined with the magic of Disneyland for 24 years. Her dedication to Club 33 and her role in making countless memories for guests was profound. Her passing leaves a void in the Disneyland community, and her story underscores the balance between joy and tragedy in the backdrop of the happiest place on earth. Brendan Moreland was a 35-year-old traffic controller, a job with its own challenges and dangers. Brendan woke up on October 26, 2021, following his usual routine. He dressed in his high-visibility workwear, laced up his sturdy boots, and prepared for another day on the job. Little did he know, this day would mark the end of his life. Brendan arrived at his post on Bruce Highway in Mackay, Queensland, ready to ensure a safe and efficient traffic flow. His role involved moving traffic cones and directing vehicles, a critical function that required vigilance and precision. Despite the inherent risks, Brendan took pride in his work, understanding its importance in preventing accidents and ensuring the safety of both workers and drivers. The morning progressed like any other, with Brendan diligently carrying out his duties. As he moved traffic cones along the highway, a car came speeding. In a tragic and unforeseen turn of events, the vehicle struck Brendan. The impact was sudden and violent, throwing him to the ground. The driver did not stop but sped away, leaving Brendan lying on the asphalt, fatally injured. Emergency services were called to the scene, but despite their best efforts, Brendan's injuries were too severe. He was pronounced dead at the scene, his life cut short in a senseless hit-and-run incident. The news of his death sent shockwaves through his family, friends, and colleagues, who were left grappling with the sudden loss of a man they loved and respected. The police immediately launched a manhunt for the driver. The Toyota RAV4 involved in the incident became the focus of an intense search. Inspector Ian Houghton, who was in charge of the investigation, coordinated efforts to track down the vehicle and apprehend the driver. Hours later, the car was found in Mackay, and the driver, a 28-year-old man, was taken into custody after being found to have also stolen the vehicle. The suspect's criminal record was extensive. He was charged with 1 count of dangerous operation of a vehicle causing death, 3 counts of unlawful use of a motor vehicle, 2 counts of driving unlicensed, and 1 count of burglary. The gravity of his actions and the senseless nature of Brendan's death left the community reeling. Brendan's untimely death elicited an outpouring of tributes and condolences from all who knew him. His family described him as a kind and caring individual who always put others before himself. He had a gentle nature and a warm smile that could light up a room. His friends recalled his loyalty and unwavering support, which had endeared him to many. Colleagues at his workplace remembered Brendan as a dedicated and conscientious worker. He approached his job with professionalism that set a high standard for those around him. His loss was felt deeply by those who had worked alongside him, sharing in the daily challenges and triumphs of their demanding profession. The days following Brendan's death were marked by grief and reflection. A memorial service was held to honor his memory, attended by family, friends, and colleagues. The service was a sad yet heartfelt tribute to a man whose life had been dedicated to serving others. Eulogies recounted stories of Brendan's kindness, sense of humor, and unwavering dedication to his job and loved ones. In the wake of the tragedy, there was a renewed focus on the safety of traffic controllers. Brendan's death highlighted the risks associated with the job and the need for more excellent protection for those who work on the roads. Discussions about stricter regulations and enhanced safety measures gained momentum, driven by a collective desire to prevent such a tragedy from occurring again. It was December 12, 2022, in Buffalo Grove, Illinois. Nicodem Zaremba, a 27-year-old plumber from Elmwood Park, was working on a routine sewer repair job. Zaremba was known for his hard-working nature and deep love for his family. That day, he was accompanied by another employee and his stepfather, working under the banner of Rooter Solutions Incorporated, a plumbing company that had been established just a few months prior. Around 5:30 p.m., the Buffalo Grove Fire Department received a distress call. A trench had collapsed in the front yard of a home on Aspen Drive, trapping someone inside. The initial report stated that the person was buried, unconscious, and not breathing. First responders rushed to the scene, but the situation was dire. When the collapse occurred, Zaremba was about 9 feet below the surface, working on a residential water line. The dirt wall of the trench had caved in suddenly, burying him under nearly 9 feet of soil. His co-workers, who had managed to escape, tried desperately to dig him out with their bare hands, but to no avail. The weight of the dirt was too much and time was running out. The fire department's response was swift. Within minutes, a mutual aid call was issued, summoning help from several nearby fire departments. The scene quickly became a hub of activity, with over 60 rescue personnel from 17 different fire departments converging on the site. Their task was to save Zaremba, but it was a race against the clock. Technical rescue specialists worked tirelessly using shovels and other tools to carefully remove the dirt without causing further collapse. The process was painstakingly slow as they had to ensure their own safety while trying to reach Zaremba. For over an hour they labored, but by the time they reached him it was too late. Zaremba was pulled from the trench at 6:35 p.m., placed on a stretcher and transported to Northwest Community Hospital. He was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. The Cook County Medical Examiner confirmed Zaremba's death around 7:20 p.m. The official cause was crushing injuries due to the trench collapse. The incident shocked and left Zaremba's family and friends in mourning. His fiancée, Nicole Kozadaj, remembered him as her everything, best friend, soulmate, and future husband. Friends described him as a fun-loving and adventurous individual who always had a smile on his face. Nicodem Zaremba's death was not just a tragic accident, it was also a preventable one. The U.S. Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, launched an investigation into the incident. The findings showed something was clearly wrong. Rooter Solutions Incorporated had failed to implement necessary safety measures that could have prevented the collapse. OSHA cited the company for one willful violation and one serious violation, resulting in fines totaling $35,940. A willful violation, according to OSHA, occurs when an employer knowingly disregards legal requirements or acts with indifference to employee safety. In this case, Rooter Solutions had failed to install cave-in protection, a critical safety measure for trench work. The trench, measuring approximately 13 feet long, 9 feet wide, and 8 feet deep, lacked any form of shoring, sloping, or other protective systems. These systems are mandatory for trenches deeper than 5 feet to prevent such collapses. OSHA also found that the employees were not wearing protective helmets, exposing them to head injuries. For this serious violation, the company faced a penalty of $4,688. The lack of cave-in protection resulted in a $31,252 fine. The investigation concluded that Zaremba's death was preventable and that the company's negligence directly contributed to the tragedy. Trench collapses are among the deadliest hazards in the construction industry. According to OSHA, the soil can shift suddenly, burying a person under thousands of pounds of dirt and rocks. Rooter Solutions Incorporated had only been in operation since August 2022 and had no prior history with OSHA. However, this lack of history did not absolve the company of its responsibility to ensure the safety of its workers. The company's failure to follow basic safety protocols resulted in the loss of a young life, leaving a void that can never be filled. In the aftermath of the incident, people gathered around Zaremba's family. Friends and neighbors offered their support, sharing memories of a man who was known for his kindness and generosity. His death shows the importance of workplace safety and the devastating consequences of negligence. It was August 15, 2017, in the dense Sir forest near Cwmfelynfach, South Wales. Ben Thomas, a 24-year-old from Aberbargod, Caerphilly, had worked as a forestry worker with Tree Finesse, a Pontypool-based company, since April 2017. Although it was his day off, Ben agreed to take on extra work, eager to make his mark in his new role. That day, a routine tree-felling job would lead to a tragic accident. Before becoming a lumberjack, Ben was a scaffolder but longed for outdoor work. After earning his forestry qualifications in January 2017, he was thrilled to start with Tree Finesse. Known for his enthusiasm and hard work, Ben was excited to be clearing trees for Natural Resources Wales in Sir Forest, an area he loved. On that fateful morning, Ben arrived at the site ready to work alongside colleagues Mark Whitehead and Elliot Wilmer. The team adhered to safety protocols, working at safe distances, about 50 meters apart, while cutting trees. This spacing was a crucial safety measure to prevent accidents during the cutting process. Ben was using his chainsaw on a larch tree, working out of sight of Mark and Elliot, who were occupied with their tasks. Around noon, Ben called out, "I'm finished," to signal he had completed his work. Mark and Elliot heard him and continued their tasks after putting on their ear defenders. Those would be the last words they heard from Ben. Minutes passed, and Mark and Elliot noticed an unusual silence from Ben's direction. The sound of his chainsaw had stopped. Alarmed, they removed their ear defenders and listened closely, only to hear the faint idling of Ben's chainsaw. They hurried towards the noise and discovered a horrifying scene. Ben was trapped under a large tree. The larch tree he felled had caused another tree, which had been leaning precariously, to collapse on him. Mark and Elliot immediately tried to cut the tree off Ben, but their efforts came too late. Ben had sustained severe injuries and was unresponsive. Emergency services were called, and paramedic Daniel Waits arrived, navigating the difficult terrain of fallen trees. Upon reaching Ben, it was clear he had already passed away. Ben's body showed significant trauma, with heavy bruising on his head and a chest that was soft and pliable. A post-mortem examination revealed the full extent of Ben's injuries: fractured ribs, lacerated lungs, and crush asphyxiation. Tests confirmed that Ben had no alcohol or drugs in his system at the time of his death. The incident triggered investigations by Gwent Police and the Health and Safety Executive. The Newport Coroner's Court inquest aimed to understand how the accident occurred to a diligent worker like Ben. Testimonies from his colleagues, supervisor, and industry experts depicted tragic misfortune. Mark Whitehead, the manager of Tree Finesse, described Ben as a safe worker who had cut around 15,000 trees during his short time with the company. He emphasized that Ben was following proper safety guidelines, which mandate that tree felling should be done alone, but under supervision from a distance. Elliot Wilmer recalled Ben's last words and their frantic efforts to save him. He described the realization that their attempts were futile and how they coped with the tragedy. Forestry expert Martin Lennon explained that the tree that fell on Ben had been leaning for a long time. This sleeper tree was not visible from Ben's position. When Ben cut his tree, the sleeper tree was destabilized and collapsed, causing his fatal injuries. After 4 days of deliberation, the inquest jury concluded that Ben's death was accidental. Senior coroner Caroline Saunders noted that there was no evidence suggesting Ben should not have been felling trees that day. The coroner's report highlighted that Ben and his colleagues followed standard procedures and adhered to safety guidelines. Despite the devastating outcome, the investigation cleared Tree Finesse of negligence. The HSE confirmed that the tragic accident resulted from the unforeseen sleeper tree, not from any breach of safety standards by the company. It was August 14, 2023, on a LATAM Airlines flight from Miami to Santiago, Chile. The flight had taken off around 10:11 p.m., carrying 271 passengers on a Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner. At the helm was Captain Ivan Andauer, an experienced pilot with 25 years of experience. He was a 56-year-old veteran of the Chilean Air Force, well respected for his dedication and professionalism. His two co-pilots, a relief captain and a first officer, were also on board. 3 hours into the flight, Captain Andauer began to feel unwell. He left the cockpit and went to the bathroom, where he collapsed. The situation quickly became critical. Around 11 p.m., one of the co-pilots asked over the intercom if there were any doctors on board. This urgent request came just 40 minutes after takeoff, indicating how suddenly the situation had escalated. A registered nurse named Isadora, along with 2 doctors, immediately responded to the call for help. They found Captain Andauer in the bathroom exhibiting symptoms consistent with cardiac arrest. Despite their best efforts, they faced a significant challenge. The plane did not have the necessary medical supplies to perform an effective resuscitation. Isadora later expressed her frustration on social media, emphasizing the need for better protocols and resources for medical emergencies in flight. As the medical team worked on Captain Andauer, the co-pilots had to make a swift decision. Realizing the severity of the captain's condition, they initiated an emergency landing at Tocumen International Airport in Panama City. The plane diverted from its original course, and the crew prepared for an unscheduled stop. The flight took 30 minutes to reach Panama City. As the plane descended, passengers were informed that they would need to evacuate upon landing. The atmosphere on board was tense and filled with concern. Many passengers were unaware of the exact nature of the emergency, but understood that something serious had occurred. Upon landing, first responders rushed to the aircraft. Medical experts boarded the plane and took over the efforts to save Captain Andauer. Despite their immediate intervention, he was pronounced dead shortly after the plane touched down. The tragic news was soon communicated to the passengers, who were deeply shocked by the sudden loss of their pilot. LATAM Airlines released a statement confirming the incident and expressing their deep condolences to Captain Andauer's family. They acknowledged his remarkable career and his valuable contributions over the years. The airline emphasized that all necessary safety protocols had been followed during the flight to safeguard his life, but the outcome was unfortunately beyond their control. The passengers were provided accommodations in Panama City hotels while the airline arranged for the continuation of their journey. The flight resumed on Tuesday, and the passengers finally reached Santiago, Chile, but the memory of the incident remained with them. In the aftermath of the tragedy, there was a call for improved medical preparedness on commercial flights. The incident highlighted the critical need for better medical supplies and training for airline crews to handle such emergencies more effectively. Isadora's comments on social media resonated with many, bringing attention to an issue that could potentially save lives in future flights. Captain Ivan Andauer was remembered not only for his professional achievements but also for his personal life. He was married to Veronica Andauer, who had passed away in 2017, and they had a daughter named Sofia Andauer. Tributes poured in from colleagues and friends, recalling their memories and expressing their grief. One of his colleagues, Sky Airline Captain Paula Mandini, shared a heartfelt message on Facebook, reflecting on their time together and hoping that Ivan was reunited with his beloved Veronica. It was June 6, 2024, at the University of Chicago Comprehensive Cancer Center in Hyde Park. David O'Donnell, a 27-year-old construction worker employed by High Tech Stakeout, was working on scaffolding with Jeffrey Spurka, an experienced ironworker. David was diligent and committed, focusing on his tasks high above ground, unaware of the imminent danger that would change their lives forever. The Cancer Center's construction involved multiple contractors, with Turner Construction as the general contractor and Adjustable Forms Incorporated responsible for the scaffolding. The project had been progressing smoothly, but the weather in Chicago turned hazardous on this day. By mid-morning, winds picked up, reaching 41 miles per hour. Despite these conditions, work continued. Workers had previously voiced concerns about the scaffolding's stability, especially at the southwest corner where it was attached to the building. Unfortunately, these warnings were ignored. The scaffold, over 100 feet above ground, had a fragile connection involving a 4-foot piece of plywood nailed to the structure. This makeshift bridge would soon become a fatal flaw. Around noon, the wind intensified, peaking at 44 miles per hour. Witnesses saw the scaffolding sway dangerously. David and Jeffrey were on the platform when the corner of the scaffold, inadequately secured, started pulling away from the building. The plywood bridge failed, leading to the scaffold's collapse. David and Jeffrey fell over 80 feet. David, without a harness or rope, fell to the ground and died despite rescue efforts. Jeffrey, though critically injured, survived and was rushed to the hospital with severe brain and body injuries. His survival is attributed to a layer of PVC pipes that cushioned his fall. The accident caused immediate chaos. The construction site was shut down, and investigations by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, and other agencies began. Legal battles followed. David's family, devastated, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Turner Construction and Adjustable Forms Incorporated. They claimed negligence, citing inadequate safety measures and the scaffold's inability to withstand the wind. Jeffrey Spurka, represented by attorney Lou Cairo, sued the same companies. Representing both families, Cairo pointed to safety lapses and criticized the decision to continue working in such high winds. The lawsuits highlighted the scaffold's poor condition, especially the plywood bridge at the corner, secured only by a few nails. The collapse happened at this weak point, causing David and Jeffrey's fall. OSHA guidelines state that work should stop in high winds unless deemed safe by a competent person, and workers must have appropriate fall protection. On June 6th, neither condition was met. David and Jeffrey, only in fluorescent vests, were vulnerable on the swaying scaffold. Turner Construction and Adjustable Forms Incorporated expressed condolences and pledged to support the investigations. Turner's spokesperson, Chris McFadden, emphasized the company's commitment to safety and suspended all construction activities pending the investigation. Adjustable Forms President Eric Lindquist acknowledged the tragedy and offered condolences. As investigations continued, questions emerged about why workers' warnings were ignored. Addressing concerns about the scaffold's stability might have prevented the tragic fall. The lawsuits exposed a critical gap in safety oversight and questioned the practices of the general contractor and the subcontractor. The O'Donnell family sought accountability through their lawsuit, demanding significant damages to enforce stricter safety protocols in the construction industry. David's death was not just a personal loss, but a reminder of the importance of safety regulations. Jeffrey Spurka, recovering from his injuries, faced a long road ahead. His lawsuit called for accountability and highlighted the need for better safety measures. The accident left him with physical and emotional scars, and his family's legal action aimed to secure justice and support for his recovery. The construction industry closely watched the lawsuit's outcomes as they would determine compensation for the O'Donnell and Spurka families and set a standard for handling similar cases in the future. The sprawling Ventra Ionia Auto Parts factory in Michigan hummed with the ceaseless production activity. Wanda Holbrook stood out in this bustling environment, filled with the mechanical ballet of robots and the clatter of assembly lines. A 57-year-old maintenance technician from Grand Rapids, Wanda was a rare presence in the male-dominated field of robot technicians. Her specialty was fixing the robots when something went wrong, a skill that set her apart and made her indispensable to the plant. Wanda's journey to becoming a revered figure in the factory was one of perseverance and dedication. Over the course of 12 years, she had navigated the complexities of the machines she tended to, earning the respect of her peers through her expertise and calm demeanor. Her knowledge of the robots was comprehensive, and her ability to troubleshoot problems was almost instinctive. Yet despite her experience and caution, tragedy struck on July 7, 2015. Like countless others before it, that morning began with Wanda arriving early at her station in the plant's 100-cell area. Here, robots worked in concert to take truck bumpers and weld plates onto them. Wanda's task was to ensure these robots operated smoothly and safely. The area was an 800-square-foot expanse of precise, coordinated movements where any deviation could spell disaster. As Wanda worked, a robot in Section 130 malfunctioned. Its arm moved erratically for unknown reasons, breaching the boundary of Section 140, where Wanda was stationed. Without warning, the robot's arm swung into her workspace, striking her with brutal force. Her head was crushed between the robot's arm and a hitch assembly it was attempting to place. The accident happened in a blink, a deadly convergence of faulty machinery and unfortunate timing. When her colleagues realized something was wrong, operations had ground to a halt, it was too late. Wanda was found unresponsive, her body lying still in the cold, metallic embrace of the machinery she had so expertly managed for years. News of Wanda's death spread quickly through the factory, the sudden and violent loss leaving a void that echoed far beyond the confines of the plant. Her husband, Bill Holbrook, along with their 3 children and grandchildren, were plunged into grief. Dozens of co-workers, friends, and family members filled the back 4 pews at her funeral, mourning the loss of a woman who had been a cornerstone of both her family and her profession. Once a place of routine and order, the factory was now a site of sorrow and bewilderment. How could such a thing happen? How could a robot that performed specific tasks within strict parameters cause such a catastrophic failure? These questions haunted Bill Holbrook, driving him to seek answers in the only way he knew how, through the courts. In the aftermath of Wanda's death, Bill filed a lawsuit alleging that the robot should never have been able to access her work area. The suit pointed to a failure in the plant's safety systems or devices, arguing that this lapse had directly contributed to Wanda's death. According to the lawsuit, the robot from Section 130 should have remained within its designated area and never attempted to load a hitch assembly within a fixture already occupied. It was a failure of multiple safety systems that had allowed this fatal breach to occur. The lawsuit named several companies responsible for the plant's automation, including Protomax, Flex-N-Gate, Fanuc, Nachi, and Lincoln Electric. Bill accused these entities of negligence, arguing that those who designed, built, tested, and monitored the robots had failed to ensure the machine's safe operation. He sought to understand what had gone wrong, hold those responsible accountable, and prevent a similar tragedy from happening again. The case was highly unusual, a grim reminder of the potential dangers lurking within the seemingly precise and controlled world of industrial automation. Fatalities involving robots were rare, making Wanda's death one of the first reported robot-related fatalities in the United States. The incident underscored the critical importance of robust safety measures and vigilant oversight in environments where humans and machines work nearby. On May 30, 2015, the sun rose over Kailua Kona, Hawaii, casting a golden glow over the Honoko House small boat harbor. Among the early risers was Captain Randy Lanes, a seasoned 47-year-old fisherman and boat captain. With over 25 years of fishing experience, Randy was a well-known figure in the sport fishing community. His reputation was built on a combination of skill, determination, and the warm aloha spirit he shared with everyone he met. As the harbor began to buzz with activity, a rare sighting occurred that would set the day's tragic events in motion. Deep inside the harbor, a broad-billed swordfish was spotted, measuring between 4 and 6 feet in length with a 3-foot bill. Swordfish, often referred to as the gladiators of the sea, are typically found in the open ocean, not within the sheltered waters of the harbor. The appearance of such a powerful and unpredictable fish in this location was highly unusual, and it immediately caught the attention of everyone nearby. Randy, recognizing the rarity and potential value of the swordfish, seized the opportunity. Swordfish meat was prized for its taste and market value, and landing such a catch could be a personal and professional triumph. Without hesitation, he dove into the water, spear in hand, aiming to secure the fish. Equally astonished by the sighting, one of his crew members began to capture the event, which would become the final moment of Randy's life. The swordfish, true to its nature, reacted violently to the intrusion. The spear hit the target, but the line quickly got tangled in a boat's mooring rope. Trapped and angry, the fish thrashed around, turning the calm harbor into a chaotic scene. It spun around the mooring rope like a game of tetherball, creating a dangerous and unpredictable whirlpool of force. In a sudden and fatal twist, the swordfish reversed its direction, its sharp bill now a deadly weapon. It struck Randy in the chest with incredible force, the pointed bill piercing through muscle and bone. The impact was devastating, and Randy was immediately pulled from the water by his horrified crew. Despite their frantic efforts to save him, performing CPR until paramedics arrived, Randy was declared dead at a nearby hospital. The news of Randy's death spread quickly through the tight-knit sport fishing community of Kailua Kona. Shock and disbelief mingled with grief as those who knew him struggled to comprehend how such a freak accident could have happened. Swordfish-related fatalities were almost unheard of, making the circumstances of Randy's death all the more incomprehensible. Randy left behind a family devastated by the sudden loss. His wife, Rachel, his 21-year-old daughter, Kaya, and his 8-year-old son, Austin, faced an unimaginable void. Randy's death was not just the loss of a husband and father, but the loss of a man whose generosity and spirit had touched many lives. Despite his rough exterior, Randy was known for his kindness and willingness to help others, even when he could barely afford to take a day off. His cousin, Bomboy Lanes, shared stories of Randy's generosity, recalling how he would strike up conversations with strangers and invite them to join him for barbecues, sharing his home and heart with anyone who crossed his path. The community came together to mourn the loss of one of their own. Fishermen who had worked alongside Randy and shared the highs and lows of life at sea now gathered to remember him. They spoke of his skill, bravery, dedication to his craft, and unwavering aloha spirit. They also acknowledged the profound risks that came with their way of life, risks that Randy had faced head-on every day. Whether the swordfish's fatal strike had been intentional or a panicked reaction remained unclear, but the result was the same: the loss of a great fisherman and a good man. Zachary Freeman Muse was a 25-year-old firefighter from Waterford, Ontario, whose life was defined by his passion for firefighting. Employed by Summerlin-based Big Cat Wildfire, Muse worked with a private company contracted with the British Columbia Wildfire Service during his first season. His dedication to the job and eagerness to make a difference were evident to everyone who knew him. On a fateful day, July 28, 2023, Zachary found himself battling a fierce wildfire at Donnie Creek, a remote area north of Fort St. John. The terrain was treacherous and the fire unpredictable, but Muse was committed to the task. Alongside his fellow firefighters, he worked tirelessly to contain the blaze, demonstrating the bravery and resilience that had earned him the respect of his peers. The situation took a tragic turn when the utility task vehicle, UTV, he was riding on lost control and rolled over a steep drop on a gravel road. The accident was sudden and violent, and despite the rapid response of his colleagues, the severity of his injuries became apparent. Muse was airlifted to the Fort St. John Airport in a desperate attempt to save his life. Despite the best efforts of the medical team, he succumbed to his injuries during transport. News of Zachary's death sent shockwaves through the firefighting community and beyond. His untimely passing was a stark reminder of the dangers faced by those who battle wildfires, often in the most challenging and hazardous conditions. British Columbia Health Minister Adrian Dix called the incident an enormous tragedy, a sentiment echoed by many who felt the loss deeply. The circumstances surrounding Muse's death prompted an investigation by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, BC Coroner Service, WorkSafe BC, and the BC Wildfire Service. The investigation aimed to uncover what went wrong and prevent such a tragedy from happening again. Amid this scrutiny, Zachary's family and friends were left to grapple with the sudden and profound loss of a young man who had so much more to give. Hundreds of people attended Zachary's funeral, including his family, friends, and many firefighting brothers and sisters. The ceremony was a testament to the young man's character and the many lives he had touched in his short lifetime. Tears flowed freely as speakers shared their memories of Zachary, recounting stories highlighting his kindness, bravery, and unwavering commitment to his work. Among the speakers was Zachary's uncle, Paul Cranch, a retired 40-year veteran of the Ontario Provincial Police. Cranch spoke on behalf of the family, sharing what kept Zachary's father going, the memories they had created together, and the pride he felt knowing his son had lived out his dream. Despite the profound grief, there was solace in knowing that Zachary had pursued his passion with all his heart. The family issued a statement expressing their devastation at the sudden and tragic loss. Their words conveyed the depth of their sorrow and their gratitude for the outpouring of support from the community. Amid their grief, they found a way to honor Zachary's memory by launching an online fundraiser for the Canadian Critical Incident Stress Foundation's Camp Faces program. This initiative aimed to support families coping with loss, reflecting the generosity and compassion that Zachary had embodied.